the Western approach is very expensive, quite rigid, and very elitist. We told ourselves, you know what, this approach worked well in the 20th century, but in the 21st century, there are two attributes that characterize the economic environment. One is scarcity, economic scarcity, as well as resource scarcity. Secondly, volatility or complexity, however you want to call it. Given this reality, we said, you know what, let's become a bit more global in our thinking and explore other parts of the world to see, can we learn about a different approach to innovation from other parts of the world? And of course, at that time, the emerging markets were doing much better than the more mature economies. So we said, let's go in these emerging markets like Brazil, China, India, to figure out how entrepreneurs and corporations innovate in that kind of environment, which is, of course, not only very volatile, but also faces all kind of scarcity of every kind you can imagine, right? So we spent 4 years interviewing entrepreneurs and corporations in the emerging markets, and we realized that the way they innovate is very different. And to summarize very quickly, they tend to innovate in a fashion that is much more frugal. That means ability to do more with less. Very flexible, they're very adaptable. And then thirdly, they're much more open and collaborative. So for the lack of a better term, we said, how do we call this new approach to innovation, which is frugal, flexible, and inclusive? Well, we ended up knowing this term in Hindi called Jugaad. And Jugaad is essentially the gutsy ability to overcome adversity by improvising a very simple solution to deal with big problems.
4 million prematurely born babies die every year, primarily due to low birth weight. Now, 75% of those deaths could be prevented simply by keeping the baby warm, but traditional incubators are too expensive. So that's where this comes in. This is actually called Embrace. It's a portable, low-cost baby warmer. So they started by going to Nepal with kind of a stripped-down, scaled-down version of a Western incubator, kind of like a de-featured incubator. And they found that it failed. Now, the reason that it failed is because they found in Nepal, 80% of the babies are not born in hospitals, they're born in homes. And of those homes, most of them don't have electricity. So they went back and they started over. And what I love about this story is they weren't married to their first idea. They completely started over and asked that really important question, who are my customers and what do they really need? And how can we deliver more value for them at a lower cost? And they came back with Embrace. So this is, like I said, it's portable, it's low cost at about $200. It's got a wax pouch in it. This is actually a phase change material in here that stays constant at 98.6 degrees body temperature for about 6 hours. And it's highly effective.
I mean, I would say, lucky enough to have put in a word something which is much bigger than a word, which is the concept, and how, particularly for large company going to India, the relationship was not one way, it was two ways. That means we were going to India to sell the product, put the technology, but we were also learning from Indians. And the best way for me to put it is to say Indian people will teach us frugal engineering, because, and I'm going to come back to our own company and what we have done about it. Frugal engineering is exactly with a very little resources do a product which is useful. But the constraint on resources is extreme. In our countries where I'm working, in Japan or in France or in the United States, when the resources are not enough, people just give up. They just say, okay, well, I'm sorry, I don't have enough resources. I'm going to have to move to something else. Well, in India, there is no giving up. And we see often in India, in some cities, people making objects out of waste. They... And when I was discussing with some of our competitors, Indian competitors, and they came with the product, and I was asking them about how much money they spent to develop this product, we thought they missed 0 or 2 in the numbers, because I mean, we were 1 to 100, for investments. So we were stunned. The first reaction is, yeah, but you know what? The quality is bad, and the building collapsed, and all of this stuff. This is the first reaction. And then we said, no, there is something we need to learn, and if we can learn it, we're going to become a better company. And I can give you also, again, and this is how we came with frugal engineering. Frugal engineering meant to our people, we don't go to India to bring something. We go to India also to learn something.